Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weeb from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after the Jets' first loss this season, these playoffs, in the whiteout. And, so often I'd be coming on here. I mean, the theme that you saw me talking about the last couple times the Jets lost, were their system being challenged by, Jim Montgomery and the St. Louis Blues. And I do think to start that game, I was elbowing Ken the entire time, and not in the malicious way that I usually do it, the way that was like, hey, check this out. And seeing that clearly, I don't know how many people heard me ask the question earlier on before the game, but asked Pete DeBoer about how much they steal from, the team that had success against the team they were playing before. And he said, we take a look at everything that Jim Montgomery was doing and try and follow these things. And there was a lot, I thought, out of the gates that the Dallas Stars were doing that was, I thought, just ripped straight out of the St. Louis Blues playbook. 9 straight shots they opened the game with. Not a good start for the Jets. They want better starts. I think I'm going to give you reasons why I think they need better starts in this series against the Dallas Stars. But that said, at some point, the Jets turn it and they just come storming back in the other direction and are just as dominant, if not more dominant, than the Stars were to start that game. What I suggest that is, I suggest it's, Scott Arniel and his staff seeing things that they know they've been challenged by and having a place to go to, right? So you can be the Stars all you want and try and copy what the St. Louis Blues were doing, but going through that series, the Jets were building counter game plans to that, and they'll be able to counter faster to what the Dallas Stars are doing if the Dallas Stars are trying to replicate what the St. Louis Blues are doing. Now, I'm not suggesting they're entirely trying to do that, but I did see a lot of structural things that they were doing to try and take advantage of the Jets that worked early, and then they didn't really work after that. So, I mean, it's my way of saying we got to break down this game, and quite often you'll see me come in hot when there's losses that the Jets have, and I don't really feel like I can come in hot in this one. I thought the Jets were the better team. Like this, to me, they're a superhuman effort away from Mikko Rantanen winning this game. I mean, so Mikko Rantanen, for those who don't know, becomes the first guy in like 40 years to get back-to-back hat tricks in the playoffs. Glenn Anderson was the last one way back, 80s Oilers days. And then you've got, I mean, he's only the third player in the history of the game to do that. So you see this superhuman effort that he used to eliminate the Colorado Avalanche continued into this game. Outside of that, I mean, I didn't think Jamie Benn looked very good. I didn't think Tyler Seguin looked very good. I didn't think Duchesne looked very good. Wyatt Johnston was extremely quiet. Jason Robertson, who's coming off injury, a guy similar to a guy like Nick Ehlers, who's not, you can see they're not at the height of their powers, checking into a series like this at this point. So, I mean, it's a long way of saying I think the Jets did a pretty good job in this game. I think that they were the better team. I think that this was. We'll get into a whole bunch of these things. I'll bring Ken in for that. We got to talk about Connor Hellebuyck. I thought that was his best game of the playoffs so far, and he ends up on the wrong side of the ledger. The Stars kind of did to him what the Jets did to the Blues in that last game in Jordan Binnington. They just scored the kind of goals that he just wasn't going to be able to stop. But I was almost a little surprised to hear Scott Arniel at the end of the game talk about he thought like the intensity of that game was like a game 45, not game 1 of the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs, but game 45 of the middle of the season. Execution wise, I would say bang on in that, but I had thought that the Jets, for the most part, followed a lot of the playbook of what they did during the regular season. Times when they were slow, they would send out the identity line. The identity line would start the ball rolling. Then they'd send out Mark Scheifele's line and get things going and then build from there and then own wide swaths of the game. I think what you're seeing, though, is especially if they can get a lead like they did in the game tonight, the Dallas Stars are a little bit more composed. and maybe a lot more composed than the St. Louis Blues. The St. Louis Blues were plucky and they would challenge you, and they were hard to hold off in the fight, but the Winnipeg Jets pulled off numerous comebacks against the St. Louis Blues, who were not able to hold leads. And what you saw tonight was just a Dallas Stars team that weathered the push that the Winnipeg Jets had to get back into that game so much better than the St. Louis Blues did. There's a simple solution to that. Don't fall behind in games. Easier said than done, but I think it does go to point to the importance of getting a good start, not starting, allowing 9 shots compared to, no shots. Now, a lot of people will say, well, they didn't score in there. What's the big deal? Well, I mean, the big deal is if you start the game and you get a lead and then get that second goal and maybe that third goal and get the other team chasing. You saw what it looks like between the Dallas Stars and the Winnipeg Jets towards the end of the season when that happens. Good starts are going to be crucial for the Jets in this series, but I personally think if the Jets are unhappy with their effort, that's fine. You always want to, put your best foot forward. I think they feel like they've got a better foot to put forward. But I honestly look at this, and if I'm the Jets, I think that I see a very definitive path to victory through the Dallas Stars, although it doesn't hurt when you point out the way that Scott Arniel did tonight, that you just gave up home ice advantage in the playoffs. That's my take on the whole thing. Time to bring in the man with the best music in the business for his take on the whole thing, folks. Here comes Kenny. Ken, my friend, looking like $1 million, as I told you in the press box earlier today. That purple tie just sings absolutely with that suit there, Ken. I think I'm doing pretty good with the blue shirt, the gray sweater, the blue and gray tie. It's almost like I know how to dress myself, and I don't really, but I do know people who do know how to dress me, and I just follow their lead, and that's the people down at Vittorio Rossi on Corden Avenue. Walk in there, tell them Kenny and Renny sent you, ask for Frankie and the boys, and they'll make this paint by numbers for you, and it'll be a Picasso by the time you're done. Ken, take it away. What'd you see in that game?
Yeah, interesting game on a lot of fronts, I would say, Sean. I think you nailed it as usual out of the gate in the opening drive. If you're the Jets, you definitely see a path to victory, in the game itself, potentially in the series. I think there's certainly some things that can clean up. Another, pretty, lackluster start, I'm going to say, on a lot of levels, that their execution was fairly poor, puck handling, passes, the structure itself wasn't terrible. And the one thing about the 8 shots in a row to start the game, Sean, outside of the Rantanen chance from the side, there weren't a ton of high dangers. So I'm not out here saying it's a Carolina Hurricanes special where they're firing from everywhere and the shot tally just kind of gets inflated, even though there's not a lot of danger. But I mean, structurally, the Jets were pretty sound, even though they, I didn't think that they were, strong enough in terms of their efficiency on their exits and their ability to. The biggest thing for me in that 8-0 run was their inability to attack. I thought they should have got, and I'm not talking about the long flip shots, Sean, that we saw in the last series on Binnington at the start of games at times. I just think they were, a little bit too cute, overpassing at times on the zone entries. And that sort of kind of prevented them from getting in any sort of offensive rhythm early on. I could understand why Scott Arniel was perplexed and a little bit disappointed. I personally didn't think that their team lacked intensity. I just think that I think the biggest thing was the execution. And I do think there was more to give on a lot of fronts, but at the same time, Sean, I think it's natural. The players didn't seem to really get into it, but I think it was almost impossible for both of these teams not to have a letdown, Sean. And I think that come Friday night, I think we're going to see a far more intense game. I mean, you touched on it. Scott O'Neill felt it was a game 45 in December type of feel. It wasn't a game one of the Stanley Cup round 2 playoffs here. Both teams played hard. I think that there was some a little bit of looseness at times in the game. The kind of game got kind of unclogged in the second period. There was a little bit of opening up at times. But to be honest, Sean, I think that the Lowry line did a great job on Rope Hintz's line in the game. I mean, we look at the score sheet, and Rantanen is a natural Hattie here in the middle of the game, and you think, oh well, the checking line must not have done its job properly. Well, Sean, that wasn't the case. This was great coaching by Pete DeBoer, who uses Oscar back on the penalty kill, and then fires up Mikko Rantanen with the fourth line on a couple of extra shifts. And both of those even strength goals happen on the fourth line. It wasn't when Lowry was going head to head with the Hintz line. And quite frankly, Sean, we talked about this upstairs. Rope Hintz was not his usual self today because Adam Lowry rocked him twice on the first shift. And again, Rope Hintz isn't a guy that shies away from traffic, but he wasn't as effective. He wasn't using his speed. Adam Lowry nullified most of his game in this game. But Rantanen, man, what an absolute heater he's on. Just absolutely bonkers right now. He's had 11 points in his last 3 games. And he's just, and Sean, this is, I'm not sure if actually we brought it up on the show. I think we did briefly, but this is one of the reasons why I thought the Jets should be in on Mikko Rantanen when it looked like Carolina was going to be moving him. And don't get me wrong, this is not 2020 hindsight, and I'm not saying that this was a whiff by the general manager. What I am saying is I'll be shocked if the Jets didn't make calls to Carolina. But the problem with acquiring Mikko Rantanen, when you look at the package that Carolina got for him on the second trade, you're looking at Logan Stankoven. And the Jets' version of Logan Stankoven is the Game 7 hero. So without Rantanen being willing to sign an 8-year extension, and even then, you're probably having a lot of pause if you're Kevin Cheveldayoff. And, unless they're, anyways, it would have been complicated, but, I would not be surprised if Kevin Cheveldayoff, I mean, again, was doing due diligence and just sort of seeing what the cost might have been. But it's a game like that. And Sean, I know we talked about this at the time. We weren't sure if Rantanen, does he fit the style? Well, these two teams play a pretty similar style. And Rantanen, now that he's back in his game and found his groove, it looks like he can fit in any style. And he was a dominant force in Game 7, in Game 6, in Game 1. And that's why the Dallas Stars were more than happy to trade for him. They didn't want to trade Stankoven, but to get a franchise cornerstone and a top 10 player, they knew what the cost of doing business was. And Rantanen put his stamp on this series. And now the Jets' job will be to try to contain him. I mean, this is not a one-man show, this Dallas Stars team. They're 4 lines, they're deep, but Rantanen was the big play driver in this game. And Sean, we often, Mikko Rantanen's heard it plenty, and we know it's not accurate, but that whole Nathan McKinnon was the one carrying Mikko Rantanen all the time. Well, again, guess what? Rantanen scored his 2 goals today on the fourth line. This is not getting carried by Rope Hintz or Nate Dogg or anybody else. Rantanen delivered the mail on his own. And I spoke with him this morning, Sean, for about 5 minutes when everyone else was talking to Tyler Seguin. He sounds a lot more comfortable than he did when he rolled into town with the Carolina Hurricanes. He's now settled and looks like he's really on one of the most incredible heaters we've seen. And that's a scary proposition for the opposition, if you will. But again, Jets had chances. I mean, lots to like about their game. And, we'll see what happens. But I think that Josh Morrissey will be back for Game 2. We've seen him skating the last couple of days. Looks like he's improving. Again, we don't know the medical reports and everything else. What we do know is that Josh is moving around pretty well and shooting the puck. And we think it's a left shoulder issue. And the way he was shooting, it looks like he's getting closer to returning. And if they get him back, that's obviously a massive boost on the back end. I thought Hayden Fleury was really good again this evening. Yeah, I understand the underlying numbers, 10 shots against, 5 shots for. But again, not dangerous chances. Fleury was good when he was on the ice, used his feet to defend, really good stretch pass on the Niederreiter goal. I thought he was really active. I thought that the cross-checking call, you understand why it's made, but this is a push on the pants. If the Jets don't have 3 power plays compared to 0 for the Stars, that call doesn't get made. So yes, he is in the box when Rantanen scores, but to me, that's not a, oh, that's a player making a bad play and it ends up in the back of the net. It's just a little bit unlucky. And I thought his game was solid on a lot of fronts. Colin Miller had some moments back in the lineup. We'll see what happens for game 2, but I mean, I would expect Fleury to stay in and Morrissey to come in, and again, probably Colin Miller comes out, and some folks will be upset with that, but that's sort of the way that I see it right now. But we'll see what happens over the next couple of days here.
I think I'm ready to hand out a bit of a Pristine Roofing wake up call. Sorry, not a Pristine Roofing wake up call. I'm going to give this
Flame and Comfort.
Flame and Comfort hot take. Patrick Guazad or Guazd or what? I always try with this when he says 2 lucky bounces and a questionable tip, nonplussed. This is that for a team that just got to the second round 1 game ago, by the bounce that went in for
off Ryan Suter
for Nemesnikov, and then the tip to win it in overtime, and then the broken stick, sorry, not the broken stick, but the whiffed on shot that ended up being, the kind of the fortuitous play that set things up. Like, you can't just throw teams out because they had good, lucky things happen for them or puck luck going their way. Otherwise, you just would have thrown the Winnipeg Jets out. So this is honestly a clueless take coming off of what the Winnipeg Jets just came off of, which is why Patrick gets the K&R hot take, brought to you by Flame and Comfort, Manitoba's premier supplier of fireplaces, wood stoves, inserts, and everything hearth related. After 50 years heating up your world, Flame and Comfort is soon moving. You'll find that when they do, it will be one of the most impressive showrooms in Western Canada. You don't need your hot takes to keep that warm feeling inside, folks. Visit Flame and Comfort, and they will take care of that for you. I was going to hand out the Pristine Roofing wake-up call right off the bat. Maybe I'll just hold off a sec. I wanted to kind of ask you this, Ken, because I was almost a little bit surprised by both coaches, on the side of Scott Arniel, that, he'd said that this was like a game 45 of the regular season. I didn't necessarily say it that way, but he's got a history of trying to wake his team up, right?
Sure.
We talked about a bunch of those games, the Utah games and a lot of the games during the regular season, the LA Kings game, where he'll say, oh, well, that just the effort wasn't good enough. And it's just, I think it's his way of kind of rallying the troops. So I like you and I are saying, I don't think we look at this and think that it's a bad game. Conversely, I'd ask Pete DeBoer if, and I'm almost kind of don't know what to think of this one, Ken, because the 2 goals the Jets score, one is just a brutal giveaway by Jamie Benn that you can't expect a team to do that. I mean, Mark Scheifele ends up so wide open because the Stars have complete full possession of the puck. And are looking to take it out of the zone, and he just gives it away. This isn't a forced giveaway. This is just handing the puck to the other team, and all of a sudden it's in the back of your net. And the first power play, the first goal that the Jets score by Nino Niederreiter, great play by Hayden Fleury, to be heads up and see that the Dallas Stars are being extremely casual on their change, and then he catches them being casual. Those, though, are 2 extremely easy to clean up goals. And then all of a sudden you're talking about a 3-0 game for the Dallas Stars here. And it got me thinking, Ken, because as much as I look at the Jets on this night at, the fact that I think that they were the better of the 2 teams, I'm having a hard time remembering the really good opportunities that they have now, outside of the one where it gets stolen close to off the line to, in the third period there. I'm trying to think of the examples of Jets kind of creating the kind of options that they want to create. One of them, I think, is Nick Ehlers gets an opportunity to go around. Kyle Connor gets a good chance from behind the net. But, I mean, I don't necessarily think that Jake Ottinger, despite saving 30 shots, seemed to be under fire. And the times that he was, it almost seemed like maybe the Jets didn't get the shot off. What am I missing here, Ken?
Yeah, I mean, interesting game. I mean, all situations, high dangers, according to Natural Stat Checker, 14-10 Jets at 5-on-5, 10-9 Stars. So Certainly not a shooting gallery at either end, but I also do think there were some good chances. I mean, we're going to dig into Hellebuck in a second here, as sharp as he was in that start of the game, especially. But for Ottinger, I do think there were some really good chances he stopped, I think, but there were also some missed shots. That Sandberg shot, Sean, really good look from the slot, just wide. I thought that, Kyle Connor had a couple really clean looks. Gabe Vilardi, really good look. Scheifele down the wall. But yeah, I mean, it was not a shooting gallery by any stretch. I wouldn't say they were always to the outside, but I think the Jets need to get to the middle more a little bit. And I think that their power play had some really clean looks on it. Gabe Vilardi down low, the ability to get to the net, I think was very important for them. And that's going to open up some things here, Sean. But again, the wild thing about this, and we've talked about this a lot, and I'm not here to harp on the guy because he's having an incredible playoff, but Kyle Connor is the most dangerous weapon on the Winnipeg Jets power play. And somehow he has gone 54 games without a power play goal, which is an obscene number for a guy as talented that he is. And he's getting looks, and he is creating looks for others, Sean. It's just so wild. We've never seen this for Kyle Connor. And Gabe Vilardi, really good look down low. He went to the backhand, almost stuffed it in. His chance, you'd mentioned it. Esa Lindell makes a toe save in the slot. Scheifele, clean look. Ottinger stops it. It's laying there. Massive humanity. It looked like Gabe Vilardi got his stick on it, but before he could jam it home, there's Lindell making a street hockey special and saving the game. But I thought that and Scott O'Neill touched on this in the post game as well, Sean. Second line with Nemestikov, Perfetti, and Ehlers was not really on its game. I think that's why you saw that flip-flop of Nino Niederreiter and Nikolai Ehlers in the third period. They just weren't quite cooking the way that they were maybe in the last game. And again, this is not a knock on that line. I just didn't see that they had a lot of rhythm going in the contest here. So, but at the same time, as you talked about, this is probably the least impactful we saw Wyatt Johnston in a game, Sean. Yes. And we love the way Wyatt Johnston plays. It's just that
Robert
line.
Thomas. Yeah,
he's their Robert Thomas. And hey, we get it. Jason Robertson is coming back from an injury that cost him 7 games, and it's clearly impacting his skating. And this is a guy who relies on skating, just like Nikolai Ehlers does. So lower body injury, it's going to take some time. We get it. But that line was not effective. Mason Marchman took a penalty, but he was not the physical force that we're used to seeing. So that's why I think, Sean, that's why there was so much disappointment for Scott O'Neill. This was nowhere near an A-plus game for the Stars, but it also wasn't an A-plus game for the Jets, which is why it was a kind of one-shot game, I guess. So, anyways, it was an interesting tilt all around. Both teams, I do think, will have the benefit of, they're going to take Thursday off. And I think we're going to see a really, again, I'm not going to say it's going to be as hard hitting as the St. Louis series, but I do think we're going to see both teams ratchet it up a little bit. And what that means is that it should open up a little bit more offense. But to your point, Sean, Pete DeBoer's answer to your question about those, correctable mistakes, he feels the same way the Jets feel. He said, I liked a lot of the things. There's a formula in what we did that I think can be successful throughout this series. We just have to keep building on those things and eliminate some of the individual mistakes. So, hey, they're the first team to beat the Jets on home ice. So if you're Pete DeBoer, darn right you're feeling good about what you saw, but you also know that as good as Mikko Rantanen is, it's unlikely to be a one-man carrying the group over throughout 4 wins here. So that's going to be the interesting part to see, which guys can elevate, which other guys will step up and provide more offense, who's going to buckle down defensively a little bit more. Jets got to get the power play going. And it was a lucky bounce off Sandberg or an unlucky bounce for the Jets fans in the chat room who are pointing that out. But here's the other thing, Sean, about saying it was only a lucky break. Let's watch the replay, folks, in the chat room. And that's why we're going to hand out the pristine Wirfing wake-up call, because if that puck doesn't hit Dylan Sandberg, it's a tap-in for Rope Hintz. He's uncovered in front of the net. So you can say it's unlucky that Rantanen's shot goes in off Sandberg's skate, but the breakdown had already occurred. So
Yeah. Well, and the other part about this is suggesting that Rantanen's tip to get the hat trick is luck.
That is
Like
not luck.
every tip is luck. Then, like it's kind of ridiculous, to be honest. Like the first goal is a nice play that Hellebuck stops, but then gets cleaned up by a player who out battles his player in front
For
of the net.
sure.
The second one, to your point, is a tap in that the Jets stop, but in the desperation to stop it, have to redirect it, and it ends up going in. And then the
Yeah.
third one is a nice tip. Like this is one of these. This smacks of the desperation of people not wanting to face the idea that the Jets got beat on this night. So now it's well, we didn't get beat. We just got the other team got lucky, right? Like that's what people typically say when they're struggling with the idea that their team lost, and that's what we're having
Sorry,
on this night.
the actual pristine roofing wake-up call to the Jets for the terrible start, though. Let's go with that.
Well, and
No piling on.
let's give a pristine roofing wake up call to Nikolai Ehlers' stick, because right now his legs seem to be going, his stick doesn't. So if you need that that pristine roofing wake up call, you give North End Rick the pristine roofing wake up call at 204-981-6289. He's the guy you want down at your place for all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. You can also call Pristine Roofing directly at 204-237-7663. Folks, give your home the pristine roofing wake up call. You will be glad that you did. I wanted to bring up a comment here as well that I thought was okay. I'm wondering if let me just get that down. I'm wondering if on this night, and let's talk goalies and get into it.
Sure.
I'll open it up with this. Brotowski said the U.S. backup chant when your 8:30 goalie was bailed out in round one is a fascinating choice. I didn't like Ottinger, how he played the first goal on Nino Niederreiter's. He way overcommits.
Yeah.
He's not in his net by the time you can see in the play afterwards. He's out of his net, right? Like he's on the other side of the post and he's covering the side of the net, not the part of the net that he needs to. But I'll say this, it sure seems to me like he got the pristine roofing wake-up call after that point, after that chant. What did you take away from his game? He was the third star of the game on this night. And I don't know if I would call it big and boring, but a lot of the, things that the Jets do really well, which is create confusion in front of them, he seemed to handle extremely well and be very, very square on the saves that he made through traffic.
Yeah, I thought that Ottinger is one of the biggest reasons that the Stars are in this round to begin with. I thought he was excellent in the games against Colorado. In the game today, I agree. I think he did overplay the Nino Niederreiter backhand, but it also wasn't defended overly well by his teammates, so you can understand. But I've got no problem with the chant. I think you got to have the courage to have the chants all the time. Silver medal, like an all-timer. We know this. So again, this is not a new chant. They've given Jake Ottinger the business before with the same chant. But sometimes the chants happen and then that player takes care of the rest. And in this case, Jake Ottinger has the last laugh. I think he's a guy who appreciates the environment and atmosphere, and I don't think he's going to be intimidated by it, much like Jordan Binnington wasn't intimidated by it. But just be true to yourself. You want to get up on the opposition goalie, go nuts. But there are going to be times when that goalie thrives in that environment also. I'm not saying don't do it. Of course do it. It's feel free, go wild. But I thought that Ottinger was very good in the game. But I would also say too, and Sean, you touched on it in the opening, if you're the Winnipeg Jets and if you're Connor Hellebuck, you're feeling good about the game because you played great. You exercised those demons in the seventh game. You spoke openly about it, and I appreciate his candor in the day before the game. Sean, I'm glad, again, Connor spoke. I'm glad he was honest. He showed humility. He showed confidence, and he showed that he didn't want to let his teammates down. And again, today, he started the game exceptionally well. And if Connor Hellebuck plays like that, he's going to steal a game or two in this series and give his team the best chance to advance. Again, it's a media narrative. Some folks were, because Hellebuck left the door open by getting pulled 3 times against St. Louis, some folks are saying, well, Ottinger's maybe pulled ahead. Well, here's the beauty of the argument. there's lots of games to be played between now and next February when the games are going to be played in Milan. So they'll go at it. But yes, the guy who's going to win the Vezina Trophy for the third time and is up for the Hart is still put himself in a very good position for the Olympic Games with Team USA. And in order for Ottinger to beat him out, he's going to have to be out of this world. So to me, Hellebuyck looked very calm, very solid in his net. And again, wasn't getting beat from distance. I thought he fought through traffic. He did a good job. There were some tips where he really did a great job with his positioning. But just to me, I thought he was really excellent in the game, Sean. And, it took a bunch of, kind of wild plays, to beat him. I mean, perfect tip, shot off the leg. And the other one was just a great effort play where there was no box out in front of the net. Right. So anyways, I thought that Hellebuyck was excellent. Ottinger, very good also, full value. 30 save effort. You got to tip your hat to the guy. And again, we talked about Hellebuyck wanting to play better. Sean, you know what Jake Ottinger's got in his mind from last year? Getting outplayed by Stuart Skinner, right? That's not something that sits well with the goaltender. Never mind the Olympic debate or whatever else. I still don't see it as a debate right now, but those are the two best American goalies, and the fact that they're going head to head is good for hockey.
I love this. Danny C says now these two stooges are going to give the wake-up call to the paying fans for chanting. Hey,
I just encouraged you. Go wild.
Honestly, I think that do your thing, right? I always remember this. I remember, and I've told this story on the pod before. I remember being a young kid. I remember my dad taking me to a Jets game to play the 80s Oilers. And I remember I remember Gretzky was having a terrible game, and it's through the second period, and all of a sudden the building started chanting, "Gretzky sucks, Gretzky sucks," and it was definite. And everyone just went nuts on this. And I remember at the time being like an 8-year-old kid and looking around in bafflement, Ken, at all the people chanting this, thinking, what are you doing? He's asleep. Leave him alone. It's Wayne Gretzky and he's having a bad game. Just quietly let him have his bad game. And I'll still remember, Ken, he comes out in the third period. He puts on an absolute clinic. I think he ended up having a 4-point third period as the Oilers walked away with the victory. And I remember him skating off the ice, and I remember him giving the Queen's wave to the crowd as he went off the ice. And it was just very obvious that the crowd had motivated him. And I would say this, in St. Louis, they kind of waited until Hellebuyck was broken before they piled on him, right? It wasn't, they didn't start doing it when he let in 1 goal. They did it when he let in 4 goals, right? Because now it's not in Hellebuyck's hands to come back in the game. It's the rest of the Jets who have to do it. And then when he gets pulled, you can lean into the whole, we want Connor chance that you heard going on and on, because he's sitting in the back of the dressing room and you're trying to reach him and have him hear that, right? And I'm not saying, like Danny C says, I love that he calls us stooges.
Tremendous. Yes.
Giving the wake-up call to the paying fans for chanting. I'm not saying to no one don't chant, but I'm also not saying that chants have no effect on goaltenders. If you want to go out and you want to tie into or light into a player on the ice, and then that player responds to it, you're affecting the game. Fans have the opportunity to affect the game. And if you want to lay into the chance and do that, and then a guy bounces back the way he does, I'm saying fill your boots, chant, do whatever you want to do, but don't discount the fact that maybe Jake Ottinger got his game into this series in response to what the fans were saying. You have to understand that the two things are connected, right? So fill your boots, do whatever chance you want. If your chance overwhelm the other team, so be it. If your chance get the other team going, so be it. There's a lesson to be learned in that, right? So whatever, take what from that what you will, but don't for a second think that we can't point out the idea that chanting and trying to get under the skin of a goaltender may have been exactly what he needed to get going on this night. I haven't fully touched on the whole Hellebuck thing. Hellebuck to me looked extremely confident, Ken. He's out, he's challenging. I thought there were 3 top corner shots that the Dallas Stars took today that would have been in had he been playing how he was playing in the last series. I feel like there was a real opportunity for him to wake up with the Jets doing what they did. Like, I think if you're sitting there and you're an MVP candidate and you have a really bad first round and you get through because your team carries you through, now you can be the kind of guy who's like, okay, I don't need to do too much, which is what he talked about, right? And once again, it was great to hear Connor Hellebuck come out. I think it's so much more healthy for him actually to come out and talk about it and talk with it in the media and connect with fans and have that conversation than what we saw from him last year, where he disappeared after the first game against Colorado and we never saw him again until the end. So I think that was a good thing. But like, to me, Connor Hellebuck, to your point, and I know I'm loving the fans who are acting like they're pulling out every part of the game, that if only that would have been a goal, and if only that would have. So it was actually a 6-3 game for the Winnipeg Jets here on this night. You can play that game the other way 100 times and 100 times over, right? Like, you could pull out one little part of the game and say, if it just would have gone like this, then the Stars would have been up this much. Hey, if Jamie Benn doesn't ridiculously give the puck away the way that he does, then Mark Scheifele doesn't score there. And if they're not lazy and not understanding of the scenario and go off the ice and allow Fleury to pass the puck up to Nino Niederreiter, then they don't get scored on there. And we're talking about a 3-0 game. See, you can play that however you want it, which is why it's a ridiculous game to constantly play this. If this would have happened, if this would have happened, if this would have happened. You can play that game with the Winnipeg Jets, and they're not in the second round quite clearly by what happened at the tail end of that game against the St. Louis Blues. So regardless, I got hijacked there, or I hijacked myself. Just getting back to the Connor Hellebuck thing, I feel like he's in a place now where, like, I thought he was fragile in that last series. And to be honest, I thought he was fragile the year before, and I thought he was fragile the year before that. I feel like the fragile nature of Connor Hellebuck in the playoffs is behind him. Because on this night, to the point that you made, this was like Binnington. Binnington had no chance on the 4 goals that were scored in him in Game 7, and the Winnipeg Jets went out and made sure that there was no chance. Well, that happened on this night, okay? The shot goes through. He stops the initial shot. Rantanen pokes it in by just beating his man, who's Dylan Samberg at that time, and like maybe the Jets' best defensive defenseman. So tip your cap to a guy who makes it happen. To your point, it's a tap in on the back. It makes your defensive footwork a little bit different. That defensive footwork ends up ricocheting the puck into the back net. There you go. And boy, oh boy, just give credit where it's due for a good tip by Mikko Rantanen rather than trying to, pawn off everything as luck, and it never should have happened. I mean, he created a scenario tonight by which Connor Hellebuck was on his game, and he gets beat 3 times on shots that there just really was no chance of Connor Hellebuck stopping, which is very refreshing to see, because there were very few examples in the last series of games in which he escaped them without letting in a shot that he probably should have had. So good to see Connor Hellebuck at that stage, and good to see that his team pulling it out for him looks to have paid off for him when it comes to his confidence and getting him into the right state of mind. And hey, if you're looking to pay off high interest credit cards or debt, we suggest you go talk to our friends at Cambrian Credit Union about their payoff loan. They can show you how taking out a loan to pay off your debt actually gets you debt free faster, and you can save thousands of dollars. Go to cambrian.mb.ca to book an appointment online. Ken, where did I want to go after?
Here, let's go Lou while you think about it.
Okay.
For folks who have realty needs, like to have met, contact our main man, Lou Ferlin, at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast.
Bobby B absolutely nails us when he says, Renny, it's the hockey gods when the luck helps the Jets, and it's just dumb luck when it helps the opposing teams. This is summing it up, the sentiment that we've seen a lot of in this chat room as succinctly and as accurately as we possibly can in this situation. Okay, Ken, the quiet nature of a lot of the star players on the Dallas Stars. You talked about Rope Hintz getting that hit early from
two hits
by Adam Lowry, and it seeming to kind of sap his will to compete. We saw a couple times other players not interested in taking hits. We saw one time Duchesne just hand the puck over to the Jets with a bit of an unwillingness to kind of dive into that kind of physical play. I guess my question to you is that something the Jets did on this night? Did a lot of these players not show up on this night? Is there another level that you expect them to reach, or is this what we can expect these players to look like against the Jets for the entirety of the series?
Oh, these are really good players, and Hintz is a guy we really are fond of. Sean, dating back to that 2019 series when he was out of his mind against the Blues. So I think that Hintz is going to be much better. Now, again, he also has a tough matchup with Adam Lowry, who's going to be a physical menace in this series. But yeah, I mean, I expect that the Stars' star power will elevate, but I also expect the Jets' star power will elevate. And we've talked about Ehlers a little bit. He has. I think there's lots of effort. You see him working hard. 2 shots, 7 shot attempts, a hit. He's starting to get closer and closer to the player we know that he can be. But Sean, this is simple. The Jets need Nikolai Ehlers to be a point producer and not a complimentary one. He's one of their best players. I talked about this with Nikolai Ehlers in LA on that last road trip. He needs to elevate. This is not a new thing for him. He is an incredibly hard marker. He knows that he has another level. He was almost a point a game player during the season. He has not been that in the playoffs. And for the Jets to advance against a team that's as good as the Dallas Stars, Ehlers has to be at his absolute best. It's impossible for him to be at his absolute best in game 4 after missing 7 or whatever it was. But he has to reach another level. I think he's working hard. I think his power play touches are there. I think his skating is there. The next thing to come is going to be his hands, as you mentioned. So in terms of the Jet Stars, I liked Scheifele's game, a lot about it. Kyle Connor, and one of the great A's, Sean, that we didn't talk about was like the second shot in the game the Jets had. Gabe Vilardi finds Connor alone. He's got 5-hole open, and Ottinger just closes it in time. So again, we saw how dangerous Kyle Connor was in that first round matchup with the Blues. He's going to be great. I think Gabe Vilardi is a guy who is finding himself, and Gabe is hard on himself as well. I spoke with him this morning also, and Gabe knows that he has another level to reach. And when that line is cooking, they're one of the best lines in the NHL. So I expect the star power on both sides to elevate to a degree for sure. Robertson's working his way back. We know he's going to be better. Wyatt Johnston, incredible player, came up clutch in Game 7 with the GWG. He's going to be better. And again, I think that Rantanen basically set the stand. He's the gold standard right now in terms of how guys are playing. And, for the Jets, they're going to need some gold standard performances to win the series. It's just that simple. These teams are very evenly matched. So star power has to be there. Meat and potatoes guys have to be there. Defense score has to be there. And goaltending has to be there. I thought the Jets needed to make life a little bit more difficult on some of the Stars players. We know that it's an unheralded decor without Mikko Rantanen, without Miro Heiskanen back there. Obviously the Jets are missing their number 1 D also, so it's a wash. Yes, I get it, but the Jets didn't really take advantage of the Stars D because their defensive structure as a team is so good. And if that sounds familiar to Jets fans, Sean, it's because they're similar. They have an unheralded defense core beyond Morrissey, and now Sandberg growing his game, and we know Dylan DeMello is unheralded, but has been a really good partner for Josh. We know Neil Pionk is a playoff performer. We know Luke Shen has Stanley Cup experience, but again, nobody's saying they're the Vegas Golden Knights in terms of their defense core or the Carolina Hurricanes, but both of these teams are among the best in the league at defending. And that's a 5-man unit, but the defense core does their part in that situation. So I think it'll be interesting to see how things move forward and progress, and how the chess match that we talked about and you talked about with Pete DeBoer and I talked about with Scott O'Neill. Definitely, I agree with you. There were some blueprint things that the Stars definitely borrowed from Jim Montgomery, and I think there are going to be some things that the Jets borrow from the Colorado Avalanche in terms of how they attack in games 2 and beyond.
Wanted to say, so I covered the Dallas Stars playing the Edmonton Oilers in the conference final last year. Wyatt Johnston blew me away with just how good this guy is in tight spaces.
Yep.
He's the kind of guy who you would expect would thrive playing a team like the Winnipeg Jets, who are all about taking away time and space and creating those. So I feel like he's got time to check into this series. The one other thing I would say about this as well is Tracy and Patrick Guzad are really, really pushing hard on this tonight, that the Jets, I think they just feel like the hockey gods turned on them. But Patrick Guzad says, I don't think anyone is saying that. I'm not sure what he's referring to, but he says Jets dominated in the third, Stars fortunate to hang on for a win. What is so illogical about that? Shake my head. He says, I'm glad he brought this up, because I agree basically with everything he says here. Jets dominated in the third. I agree. Stars fortunate to hang on for the win. I don't know if I would say fortunate to hang on for the win. And this is where I think you're starting to get into I've said this before at times, like you have to tip your cap to what other teams do well, and not just always say my team's the best and the other team is not as good as my team. And if my team does what they're doing, they're either going to win, or it's, bad bounces that led to this or whatever. Here's the deal. The Blues we just touched on, the Stars we just touched on it, didn't get a strong game from a huge swath of their really good players. And they had a 1-goal lead, and the Jets pushed and pushed and pushed, and they still won that game. Now, what you are looking for as luck, or you are looking for as them being fortunate or whatever, I would suggest we've seen a lot of games where the Winnipeg Jets, and we've talked about it in the regular season, where the Winnipeg Jets don't have their game and they sit and they fall back on their structure and they survive. And then they pounce at the right times. This, to me, is to a degree the Winnipeg Jets getting Winnipeg Jets, and why I think this is important. And I know, Patrick wants to just say, play like I can tell by the way Patrick is saying, play this game over and over again, and the Jets are going to win, and we've got nothing to worry about, and this is just how it goes. Here's the difference. The St. Louis Blues are a team that was up in the game 1, and then they blew that lead and lost it in the third period. And then clearly up in game 7. And were they up in game 5, Ken? I can't remember.
Sorry,
tie game. The St. Louis Blues were the worst team in the league at giving up late goals, especially at 6-on-5. So what the Jets ended up doing was exploiting a team whose weakness was exactly what we saw, a team that couldn't hold leads. That's not the Dallas Stars. The Dallas Stars are more like the Winnipeg Jets, in that if you allow them to get up on you, you can't expect them to crumble the way that the St. Louis Blues crumbled. You forget that. And yes, the 2 goals that the Jets got tonight were on very, very obvious mistakes that the Dallas Stars made. And then all you folks out there who love to talk about Connor Hellebuyck and say, well, he started out bad in that game, but then he shut the door and he said no more after that point. The Dallas Stars kind of shut the door and said, okay, no more mistakes from this point on, and let's lock this down. And we've seen the Dallas Stars do this to the Winnipeg Jets over the last number of years, where they're able to shut down games. And I've said this before, Ken, I've said it on this podcast. I kind of don't like the way that they do it, because I think the way that you beat the Winnipeg Jets is you stay aggressive with them. The Stars don't do that. The Stars fall back into a bit of a defensive shell like the Jets do when they don't have their game going. But I think what you have to look at in this game is their ability to do that. It may not look pretty, but they pulled it off. They didn't give the 10 bell opportunities that we saw from the St. Louis Blues, outside of that one where it's stolen off the goal line. How many times do we see the Winnipeg Jets steal goals off the goal line? This is the Jets getting jetsed to a degree on this night here. And I say this, if you are going to sit and say that, the Jets fall back in games and then they can't quite get back into the game, and your response to that is, well, the Jets just didn't get any of their bounces, then I would say maybe get used to making those excuses, because if the Jets don't find a way to overcome their bad starts and fall back in games against the Dallas Stars, I don't like their chances. And you can sit there and bemoan the hockey gods or the bounces or whatever you want and say the Jets should have won that game, and if only this would have happened, if only that would have happened. How many times would teams have been able to say that about the Winnipeg Jets this year when they fell back into that shell that was so successful for them? Good teams know how to lock games down. They know how to bend, not break, all those different kind of things. And you have to be open to the idea that that's what the Dallas Stars did tonight. They came without the fastball thrown by the vast majority of their pitching roster. One guy was on tonight. No one else really seemed to be when it came to their forwards. And yet they still walked away with a victory. And I still am struggling to think of all the unbelievable chances that the Winnipeg Jets just didn't capitalize on. This is the Stars. The Jets can't get used to not starting games on time. They need to treat getting, how they treat keeping the puck in the opposition zone like it's live and die by keeping it in that line. They need to start playing like it's live and die by getting the lead and building on that lead, because falling behind against this team is not a recipe for success.
No, I mean, they don't play the structure like the LA Kings, but they have some of the similar qualities that the Jets have had trouble with the LA Kings over the course of this season. And again, folks in the chat room, yes, you're accurate. The Jets won 3 of the 4 games, and the 3 times that the Stars came into a game where they had a chance to pull within 4 or 6 points, the Jets said, thank you for coming, and smoked them, right? Almost a shutout in one of the games, shutout in the last game, and then beat them by 10 points. But again, regular season is not the same as the playoffs. We know that. Sean, we've spent countless hours talking about the Jets' scar tissue. Well, while the Jets were getting their scar tissue in the first round, the Dallas Stars were getting their scar tissue in the conference final last year, people. This is not a team that is in the playoffs for the first time in 3 years, like the St. Louis Blues were. The St. Louis Blues battled their behinds off, but they were in the playoffs for the first time in 3 years. The Stars have been a contender since Pete DeBoer got there. So let's keep things into perspective. Yes, the Stars struggled, but that time is over. That losing streak to end the year is not relevant. It's not the same team. And in 3 of the 4 games, the Stars didn't have Mikko Rantanen. That's a huge difference for them. And we saw it today with his hat trick. But yes, these are 2 evenly matched teams. So of course there's going to be elements of luck. But Scott O'Neill said it last round, Sean. You make your own luck. Good teams find a way to win. Today, the Stars were, I get it. We can all say the Jets were the better team at certain things, but the Stars won the game. They deserve to win the game. And now it's up to the Jets to respond in game 2 and beyond and show that they have the counter punch. And this is not the end of the world for the Jets. It's the first time they lost game 1 in 4 rounds. Guess what? 2 of those rounds, they didn't get out of the first round when they won the opener. But now they need to respond on Friday with an even better effort, with better finish, fewer mistakes, better power play. You can say it was unlucky on the penalty kill, but the penalty kill was great at the end of the series against St. Louis. It's got to be exceptional in this round because the Stars have had a good playoff on a lot of levels, and they're feeling good about things. And the Jets should still be feeling good about things too, Sean. But I think our point here, and I think the chat room agrees, and whether they're using the word luck or we're saying something else, the Jets, this is a missed opportunity for the Winnipeg Jets because of all the things we've spent the last hour talking about. Scott O'Neill said it perfectly. It's not, they just lost home ice advantage, and it's not like Dallas rolled over them for 60 minutes. That game was there for the taking, but because it's a 60-minute game and the Jets were kind of sleepwalking for 8 to 10 of them, even though they didn't get scored on, it kind of put them in a chase mode. And I think that was one of his biggest issues. And hey, other than that, it's an even game, one-shot hockey game. So yeah, lots to build on for both teams. And this is what we expected. We expect this to be a 6 or 7 game series. That's if you get to the final 8, you're a damn good hockey team. These are 2 darn good teams. They're going to go toe to toe. They're going to stand in the middle of the ring. It's not going to be, 500 hits or whatever that was last 600, whatever the number was last round, but it's going to be physical. It's going to be intense, and it's going to be an incredibly enjoyable to watch, just like today was.
I feel like there's people who need love here today. So here, let's say it like this. Let's throw out all our analysis before this and say the Dallas Stars gave up 3 goals against the Vancouver Canucks in that game. So that defines them, and that's going to be them going forward in this series. They'll blow all their leads in dramatic fashions against the Winnipeg Jets, and that the Jets were far and away the best team tonight. The only reason they didn't win is because the bounces didn't go their way, and all the bounces went the Dallas Stars' way. Hopefully now some people can feel better about this game and move on to game 2 tonight. And Ken, we can move on to the Johnston Group got you covered play of the game. What do you got there? It was a good one by Neil Pionk there.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement. You can lay it out there.
You do it. You have
really good breakup. I mean, I just thought it was a really smart play by Pionk. Just again, another stable game, and just a really good breakup. The details are a little foggy here at 1:46 a.m., but it was a cross ice play, and he just made a really smart read to prevent. It looked like it was going to potentially be a backdoor tap in. I can't remember which player it was for, but smart play by Pionk in the game where, hey, without Morrissey, Pionk again had to have another good game with Dylan Sandberg.
Honorary mention to Back, who
yes,
stick in front of the net on Mark Scheifele, was it? Great play. That was probably a bit of a goal saver.
Velarde. Hey, it was Velarde. Kyle Connor cut out
on Velarde. Hey, if it would have gone the other way there, the Jets would have won that game 7-3, as people are pointing out in our chat room. Hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. TCB lamplighter. Okay, someone had said this. Did I star this? Someone had said that they were going to share their TCB lamplighter, even though they knew they weren't going to get anything out of it. I am happy to say TCB wanted to make sure that they were kind of spoiling our audience like they've done for so long. So they wanted to switch things up a little bit. Rather than handing out an 8-pack per show, they wanted to hand out a little bit of a bigger prize to be handed out at the end of the series. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go throughout the series. Share with us your TCB lamplighter. You will be automatically entered to win at the end of the round a Frosty Delicious 15-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. Also, along with that, a TCB Lamplighter hoodie and a coupon for one of their amazing pizzas, which I think is the best pizza in the city. So continue sharing with us your TCB lamplighter, and we're going to get to that here. Ken, what was the goal of the game for you?
Yeah, honestly, it's got to be the tip, the Rantanen. It doesn't end up being the game winner, but for me, his ability to get to the front of the net, and we spent 58 minutes here. And again, we focus our analysis on the Jets, but we also appreciate when other players have momentous occasions. Rantanen was the star of this game. Thomas Harley, an absolute beast in this game. 25-07 for the Dallas Stars. Pete DeBoer, quite frank when I asked him about it this morning, Sean, with Heiskanen out. He flat out said the Dallas Stars are not in the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs without the growth in the game from Thomas Harley, from Four Nations to today. And today, he was the best defenseman on the ice for either team. He had the shot on the tip that Mikko Rantanen had. Yes, honorable mention to Scheifele's goal. Yes, that also took a big-time turnover. Cough up from Ben to happen. The Nino Niederreiter goal is a great stretch pass from Fleury, and an exceptional play by Mason Appleton to get it through the legs of Harley and then tie up Harley enough so that he couldn't swing his stick around so that Niederreiter could go in on the backhand. But for me, it's the redirection in the midst of the natural hat trick. That's what I'm going for with the Lamplighter.
You know what? I would go, I think, in this situation with his first goal. I mean, it's the only way you are beating Hellebuck on this night. A cross ice pass, a great shot. He stops the shot at that point as the goalie. You're just looking. You're looking for your defenseman to kind of clean that up. And this isn't like an indictment on Dylan Sandberg. This is, I guess, saying just how good Rantanen is, that the Jets' best defender. He throws in the effort to kind of dive and poke it in with his stick. I'll tell you this. We've seen Mikko Rantanen a whole bunch of times against the Jets this year. And what I saw was a guy who was not at all interested, Ken, in going through the grind that it would take to score against the Winnipeg Jets. And I think, the fact that he gets that goal in that manner, where he's basically laying out to start that, is he kind of showed in himself what had been missing against the Jets earlier that year. And I think probably if you're going to be if you're the Stars and you're looking at tape of game one, you're going to be looking at the rest of these guys that we talked about not going, the Sagans, the Duchesnes, all of these guys, and say, guys, this kind of effort is the kind of effort you are going to need to have to make a contribution in this series. So that, I would think, makes it the TCB Lamplighter of the game. It doesn't matter what we think, though. It matters what you think. Share with us your TCB Lamplighter of the game. You're automatically entered to win at the end of this series a frosty, delicious 15-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company, along with a Lamplighter hoodie and a pizza from the place that has the best pizza in town, by my reckoning. If you can't wait, though, for all those items from Kenny and Renny, you can go pick them up right now at 11290 Kenniston and join them in their tap room where they have all those things. Go check it out, folks. And that means that I will not be announcing a winner now. We'll announce a winner at the end of the series, but make sure you share with us, folks. You got to take part.
Get your hashtags ready, folks. Come on.
There you go. And that brings us to our hashtag, the keg save of the game. Ken, what do you got?
I mean, love the start for Hellebuck. Blocker save, I think it was on Wyatt Johnston, one of them that we saw that was kind of headed for the top shelf. But just based on the situation in the game, it's got to be Ottinger on Scheifele and then Lindell getting his... I understand. I watched the replay now, Sean, 6 times on the highlight show on Sportsnet here while we were doing the show. Velarde doesn't get all of it, but if Lindell doesn't have a skate down, or it's in the net. I've watched it 6 times. So that's got to be the keg save of the game for me. Just otherwise it's a tie game. And Sean, we might still be covering the game instead of talking about it.
No doubt. No doubt about that. I'm going to go with Helly's save on Rantanen before Rantanen had scored. I mean, that was a great play, and everyone on the ice wearing a Winnipeg Jets jersey bit and was not prepared for that play, but Connor Hellebuck was. And to me, it was back to, like, put it this way. I mean, I guess I saw it, and I don't know if it was one of those 9 shots early, the Wyatt Johnston blocker save, but this is, for me, one of those games where in those first 9 shots, it could have been 1-0, 2-0 for the Dallas Stars, and this game could have gotten away on the Winnipeg Jets, and Connor Hellebuck could have been, maybe back to struggling. Someone here had said in the chat they think that he's going to still continue to struggle, that he doesn't think it's behind him. I think it's behind him. I think tonight really showed that. I think that's an important save because it's the kind of game here tonight that even though it's a loss, I think Connor Hellebuck walks away from it and will truly be saying, well, I liked my game, and 1,000% mean it in his head. That's my keg save of the game. It doesn't matter what we think, though. It matters what you think. Share with us your hashtag, the keg save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. And our winner from our last show, that amazing Game 7 magic there. It's Game 7 magic for Christina Hackle. Christina Hackle, do you know what to do? Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. I will have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. Kennything Kenny,
Nice.
anything you need to say
This is what
before we
happens at
go? That's what. That's
154.
how I'm going to turn the show. I'm just going to say Kenny thing, and then you
Indeed.
can just go.
Happy to report I was at the Gary Street Keg last night with Stacy and Tracy Myers from NHL.com. Had a great meal there. Caught the game, and we just had a fantastic steak. It was very good. We'll get there together soon, and yeah, we're looking forward to game 2. It was a fun start to the series. This is going to be a darn great series. 2 really smart coaches, 2 very good teams. No shortage of storylines. Buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy ride at times for both sides. And we're going to enjoy chronicling every second of it, just like we did in Game 7.
Yeah, as much as I like the Jets game, I honestly think they have far more to give, but I also think the Dallas Stars have far more to give. So it's going to be interesting to see them elevate their game. I think you saw 2 teams that were coming off of the hangover of the absolute bangers that they played in Game 7. Game 2, I think, is going to be far more. Like, I'll say this about that Blues series. There was not one game that entire series that the Blues didn't absolutely bring it. The Jets definitely struggled more in their building than the Blues did in the Winnipeg Jets building, but all 7 of those games I thought were formidable games. This, to me, is the lowest game, that playoff game that we've seen from the Jets so far this year. Gotta say, too, the Jets had in the whiteout, not including the Edmonton Oilers series win, which was not in front of fans, they'd had a total of 5 wins in the whiteout, and it was something like 13 losses. The before this year, and then the Jets won 4 straight, almost doubling their lifetime whiteout wins in that first series. So we'll see if they can get back to matching their previous, all those years, all their whiteout wins. They could match them with a win in their next game. It's going to be a good one. We'll see everyone on Friday when we check that out after the game. Talk to you then. Bye-bye, folks.